I'm Amythest, and welcome to Ask an Autistic.
I want a renaissance to shine a light, be the change we want, set things right. We've been waiting in the dark for so long.
In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about what it means to be an ally to the autistic community. People ask, how can I be a good ally to autistic people? The first thing to know about being an ally and about being a good ally is that when you are an ally, you are standing with and alongside the group that you are supporting, so in this case, autistic people. When you're an ally, you are standing with or even behind autistic people, supporting them and encouraging them, being there for your autistic family members and friends. But the important thing to remember, and this seems really simple, but people tend to forget, is that autistic people should be leading the discussions about autism. And that if you are an allistic ally, you should be deferring to autistic people in discussion. And it is the voices of autistic people that should carry the most weight and get the most consideration in discussions about autism and disability and about the lives of autistic people, because they are our lives and we are the ones who are autistic. And so it seems really simple to say, but sometimes people can get caught up. You have a family member or a friend who's autistic, you want to further the cause and acceptance and awareness, and that's great. But just keep in mind that in your enthusiasm, you shouldn't be speaking over autistic people or taking the lead. Because for a long time, all kinds of people with disabilities, autistic people included, have been kind of pushed aside or underestimated. And disabled people can tend to get the "we know what's best for you" treatment from non-disabled people. Hi, Kitty. The second way to be an ally to autistic people is to actually read and listen to the voices and writings of autistic people. Again, it sounds simple, but some people aren't even aware that there is a large and very diverse collection of writings and articles and blogs by autistic people, autistic teenagers and adults. And it is such a great resource, especially for the parents of autistic children, because who knows better what your child is going through than people with autism? While every autistic person is different, there are things that all autistic people have trouble with, and there are challenges and disabilities that autistic adults have already encountered and may have some wisdom and tips and tricks to impart to people who are willing to listen. A big part of this is something called presuming competence. When I support ideas about autism acceptance and neurodiversity, and when I speak out about organizations like Autism Speaks, these things shouldn't be controversial at this point in our society, but they are. And so sometimes I will get messages from parents who they just don't know, and I might be actually their first encounter with the ideas of neurodiversity and autism acceptance, or I may not be, and they may have kind of a bad taste in their mouth because they're just misinformed about who it is that supports autism acceptance. So I get some comments like, "Oh, well, of course you're high functioning, you're just quirky, of course you don't want a cure for autism, of course you don't like Autism Speaks, but you're not like my child and you're not low functioning. We need to find a cure for the low functioning autistics." And then when I reply, I try to be gentle but as firm as possible, and I say, actually, it's not just the high functioning autistics, not just the Aspies out there who believe in acceptance and in neurodiversity and in letting autistic people lead the conversations about autism. And then I provide links, because there are many, many amazing nonverbal autism advocates, and I will link to all these wonderful people below, but they are the severely autistic people that less than great autistic allies tend to pull out in discussions about autism acceptance and anti-cure, pro-cure. So if and when these people who contact me can get over their initial defensiveness and open their minds a little, and if they actually read these writings, I get messages back that say, I never knew, because the rhetoric that you hear is that of complete negativity and that autistic people are locked inside themselves, they don't understand what's going on around them, that autistic people who don't speak with their mouth parts will never communicate. When now we're realizing through AAC and sign language, text-to-speech, and the rapid prompting method that that's simply not true. That to be autistic and to be nonverbal, you might have speech apraxia, or you might be unable to put your thoughts into vocal words, but every autistic person has a rich inner world of thoughts, experiences, memories, and no matter what it looks like to neurotypical people from the outside, every autistic person is a person. They can hear what people are saying about them, see what's going on around them, and so it's so important to presume competence, because as the parent of an autistic child or as just a person out there in the world, you've been told things about autistic people that just aren't accurate, because these are things that were observed by and then written and spoken and spread by non-autistic people who have no idea what it's like to be autistic and who never actually went to ask autistic people what it is like to be autistic. And one of these wrong ideas is that a very high percentage of people with classical autism have intellectual disabilities as well. And so they are unaware of the world around them and that they can never learn. So now we're realizing that the way that we've been testing autistic people for intelligence, whatever that is wrong, because we learn in a different way and express in a different way. The teaching to us and the testing us and the methods of communication have to be different and have to be adapted, but when they are, and if you find the method of alternative communication that works for you or for your autistic child through teaching and hard work on behalf of the autistic person, there can be communication. It might not be verbal communication with the mouth parts, but autistic people, more and more with methods that are being developed, like the rapid prompting method, are finally able to express themselves, and families are amazed. And then there's some sadness too, because if all these autistic people are in there and they just need to find their voice and find a way to communicate, how many more autistic people have been written off, have been treated poorly as even less than human because of how they look to neurotypical outsiders? So I got a little sidetracked there, but the point is, a very important part of being an ally to the autistic community is to presume competence. Through presuming competence, when you are interacting with an autistic person or reading the writings of an autistic person who may be classified as low functioning or nonverbal, you can open yourself up to a whole another world, the voices and experiences and stories of autistic people who most people have never heard because of this very negative rhetoric of fear and tragedy and that autistic people are burdens, and then the lie that if you can't speak with your mouth, you have nothing to say. My third and last tip for being an ally, a truly good ally to the autistic community, is to be prepared to change. And I know it takes humility and you gotta humble yourself sometimes, but when our emotions get in the way, when we feel defensiveness or we want to defend ourselves, or you might be an ABA therapist, so you want to defend your profession, or you're the parent of an autistic child. These are all legitimate feelings, and it's important to remember that your feelings are valid, but your feelings can also get in the way of the truth. People sometimes message me, often anonymously, and they're just so apologetic. They say, I supported Autism Speaks. Does this make me a terrible person? I want to be a good ally to the autistic community. What do I do? How do I take this back? And of course, you can't take back what you did in the past. But everyone, non-autistic, autistic, neurodivergent, neurotypical, everyone is constantly in this state of growth and change. And by accepting that growth and change, and by realizing that you may have made some mistakes or thought some wrong things in the past, and now that you are educated, now that you know, you can start being really involved. If that is what you want, to be an ally to the autistic community, you can read and distribute the writings of autistic people. You can support and encourage and stand behind and lift up your autistic family and friends and members of the autistic community who are working hard to bring our society to a place of equality and acceptance. Who you were 5 minutes ago is not who you are now. We are in a constant state of flux and change. Nobody has to be static. You can choose to hold on to those negative feelings, or you can choose to take a deep breath, let it go, and move forward. Because honestly, with all the negativity and the cure culture and all the nastiness out there, The autistic community really does need all the allies that it can get. We need you. And if you are the parent of an autistic child, you are in a privileged position to say no to the idea that autistic children need to be cured of their autism or encouraged to act more neurotypical. And if you are an educator or a therapist or anybody who as a professional works with autistic people, it is especially important for you to read the writings of autistic people, to hear our voices and to listen to our stories and to take all of this into consideration. And in that way you can have a very complete and accurate picture of what autism is and what it means to be autistic. And there is no better way to learn that than from autistic people. And I would like to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on what it means to be an ally? And what are ways that you think that allies can be supporting the autistic community? What are some ways that all of us together, autistics and non-autistics, can bring society towards a place of acceptance and inclusion? And if you have an autism-related question that you would like answered or a topic you would like discussed in one of my videos, feel free to post it in the comment section or message it to me if you would like it to be anonymous. Thank you for watching my video, and happy Autism Acceptance Month!
I want a renaissance to shine a light, be the change we want, set things right. We've been waiting in the dark for so long.